Afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No? You can now? Okay, excellent. Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for making it to the graveyard shift. I can see more people than I can count on my fingers, so that's positive. Just a little bit of background on the session. When Dale asked me to moderate the session, my initial instinct was to say no, because I'm sitting here with 4 panelists that have a hell of a lot more knowledge than I have on sustainability and conservation. But then I read the brief again and I thought that actually is the purpose of this session as well. What we have on this panel is extremely rare. We have a DMC that has held the conscience of the sustainability initiative over decades. We have a founder who's started with 2 camps, built them in 10 months, and is humble enough to say, we're just expanding, nothing crazy. We have an investor that has built a world-class, award-winning hotel in the Mara, towing the conservation line, much before the market told her what the right thing to do is. And at the end, we have an operator whose name comes up every time somebody asks, what is the right thing to do actually? So we do have a great panel. I'm not going to come in the way between the panelists and the audience here, whatever little we have. But I do have some questions, and I suspect it's going to be worth your 30 minutes. So if I may, just a quick introduction to each and every panelist. Kieran, CEO Cheli&Peacock. It's East Africa's longest-standing DMC and has curated safaris since the early 1980s. Kieran leads a business that simultaneously is a distribution gatekeeper, a camp operator, and a conservation advocate. If a camp is not with Cheli&Peacock, most discerning travelers will never hear of it. Holds a lot of power. Rosco Wendover, CEO of Angama. Angama is a Kenya-based safari and travel business where he leads a strategic and operational direction of a distinctive hospitality brand rooted in exceptional guest experience. With focus on disciplined growth and brand integrity in the first 20 months, he has overseen a period of transformation, positioning the business for long-term success. We have Einars, Garoza. He is a co-founder and CEO of Conserve Safari, a safari real estate development and management company that entered the market by building 2 properties in Tanzania within 10 months. If I need to remind anyone again. And it's already expanding. Conserve has developed a funding model that is designed to open access to safari real estate investors to a much wider global investor audience. Lastly, and by no means the least, Leena Gehlot. Leena Gehlot is a managing partner at KG Group, a family business spanning infrastructure, hospitality, wildlife, and conservation. She has led the development of Mahali, Missouri in partnership with Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Limited Edition and the Finch Hatton's luxury tented camp, which is one of Africa's leading luxury camps. She is now actively deploying impact capital, and it brings in a unique triple perspective of being a developer, operator, and investor. Now to the fun bit, if I may. Let me start with Kieran, because you didn't respond to my emails. Let me start with you. He does not, right? That's what power does to you. Kieran, how deliberately do you use your influence, I have to ask that, over a guest's itinerary to direct business towards a conservation accredited property? And has doing so ever cost you?
Good question. DMCs do have influence over itineraries, and they exercise editorial choices that the guests and some trade partners aren't necessarily aware of. There's no 2 ways about it. And I think the industry should be a bit more candid about that fact than they are. There are Africa specialists who are outbound Africa specialists who know what they want to buy for their client. The DMC becomes an order taker in that scenario. But we do understand the landscape. We understand what conservancies function, which ones don't. We understand who is performing from a conservation impact perspective, and that very much informs their ranking within our ecosystem of portfolio properties, and whether they get selected for an itinerary where we have complete influence and control over. Yes, we have lost business and bookings because we have refused to book certain properties that have been requested because, in our opinion, they do not deliver impact. They may have a logo and may have a statement, but what actually happens is very different on the ground. So
Yep.
I hope that covers it.
Oh, thank you for that. If that being the landscape, Leena, the awards for Mahali, Missouri came in a lot later. What was the driving force behind the conviction to toe the conservation line when you were building Mahali a long, long time ago?
So for us, we are aligned as operator and owner. The owner's Virgin Limited Edition and Virgin, they're a family-owned group, so are we. We are fourth generation East African family business. So for both of us, you know, it's very important that we are here for the long-term stewardship for both the ecosystem and the wildlife. You know, and it's that alignment that has pulled us through, say, the post-terrorism attack in 2013 and also COVID. By being aligned and putting conservation first, we were able to really be where we are today. I think the important part is conservation for us is really about core asset protection. It's part of our investment model. You know, without the migratory corridors, without protecting the wildlife habitats, you're going to have a very degraded wildlife experience. So we see how not protecting the ecosystem can compress ADR. You know, there's also, we've been selling safaris for 30 plus years, so we know what the luxury traveler is looking for. When luxury used to be about exclusivity, today it's actually about meaning and purpose and low density access to wildlife. So also behind the scenes conservation access, learning about the restoration stories. People want to leave and feel like their money's actually gone towards Africa. And we've always held sacred not only our property, but also how we treat community, how they're integrated into the model, and conservation. So for us, you know, conservation is really an economic infrastructure. And the scarcity in luxury today is not luxury itself, in luxury safari, it's actually ecological authenticity.
It's both amazing and ironic at the same time, because we're sitting in an urban hotel in an air-conditioned room and talking about conservation, but it's quite amazing that you have had success and led with a conservation first model, if you will. So it's quite amazing. Just expanding on that, Rosco, as Angama grows with more and more camps in the region, how do you transplant the sustainability DNA into a new ecosystem without looking sort of formulaic or templated, if you will?
Yeah, hi, nice to be here. So fundamentally, the sustainability model is not about DNA. DNA gives you the sense of a hard coding that is not, you know, sort of able to transform and breathe. And I think that what we need to hard code, if we're going to use that kind of language, is the operational infrastructure behind deploying capital into for good purpose, sustainability, conservation, whatever. But I think that really the values that we live by drive sustainability and conservation as an agenda principle to our guest experience. So we are not conservationists, we are business owners, but our fundamental business output is guest experience from a sense of place and sense of purpose. So it is not only a responsibility, but it's a privilege for us to be able to generate green equity value in the land around us, so such that people benefit from the investments of our nature. And also 100% of our staff, it's a non-negotiable model, come from our communities. So when you talk to our staff, it is their space, it's their land, it's their heritage, their history. So you walk away with, as we've just discussed, a genuine understanding of an appreciation of where you've been. So the hard coding DNA is around, real responsibility and management of that funding, governance of impact investment. We don't talk about our foundation impact investment. We don't brand it or market it, but it's there behind the scenes. And it's key to our operating model. It's not negotiable.
Thank you for that. And in the descending order of age for the panelists, Einars, I'm just guessing. You built 2 camps in Tanzania in 10 months. What did the execution prove to you about the opportunity, and what did it prove to the investors?
Yeah, so we entered the market fairly quickly, and so what it proved to us is that the opportunity is real there. So my assumption is that Tanzania probably has the biggest opportunity space right now in East African safari market. So the country is starting from a low base. We see a lot of pockets of opportunity. My assumption is that there's going to be 2-3 year window when most of the concessions and new licenses are going to be issued, and we will end up in a similar situation as Kenya. And so what that proved to our investors is that this is a real thing. So we approach investment almost like peeling off layers of onion. So we peel off a number of risks. The first one was the construction risk. We managed to do it almost in budget and in time. We generally set up properties within 4 or 5 months. So we de-risked that element. And then the next element was that we had to deliver revenue. So we managed to break even with properties in 5 months. So I think we jumped right into market occupancies when we started. That is a testament also to demand for safari experiences globally. And so I think global tourism is growing in general. I think safari tourism is outgrowing general tourism, and Tanzania has been outgrowing other markets when it comes to safari. So, and I think the last thing that we learned or we proved is to deliver back to our investors that join in initial rounds. So just last month we offered first disbursements to our investors. They decided to reinvest back. So I think what we proved to them is that we can deliver. And so I think they relaxed. And so we can continue from there.
Fascinating stuff. On the model as such, Leena, if I may, you've partnered with Virgin Limited Edition that gave Mahali the global distribution and some conservation credibility, partnering with the brand that is passionate about that. Is that a model that you think can be replicated today?
We've been successful in it, so I think it can definitely be replicated, but it's about alignment of values and, really, like I said, conservation coming first. There is risk and opportunity that I see. The risk is there's already overcapitalization of the safari market. You've got luxury brands coming into sensitive ecosystems. You've got the pressure on higher keys, higher ROI. How are we going to achieve it? You've got excessive guest expectations, which is building to kind of intrusive infrastructure. And, for all of those, nature's not infinitely scalable. So how are we going to look at conservation capital as, how are we going to look at the capacity of conservation in this? So that's one of the risks. The other one is really Disneyfying the wildlife experience and over-curating experiences. So again, that intrusive infrastructure, guest expectations, too many vehicles. When really, the magic of safari is the silence, not too many vehicles, the wilderness authenticity, ecological integrity. It's really important that we keep that as the central core of why we're in this business. And, for the opportunity, there's definitely opportunity for brands to come in, but it's how they're coming in. And, there is a economic certainty to why we have to conserve the wildlife habitats and do all of that. So in terms of the high-end, low-density model, it makes a lot of sense. But this can only work if we really are disciplined about growth. We protect the ecosystems. We are aligned with community, otherwise you're going to get operational instability. And above all, the conservation metrics are real and not just a tick on a website. So for me, I really think the highest yielding safari product is going to be one that looks after the ecosystem the best.
Oh, thank you for that. I think the word has gone out that this is a riveting session, and I think the numbers have doubled here of the audience. So that's good. Thank you. Kieran, if I may, when so much thought is being put into the conservation aspects of these camps, do you put any filters regarding sustainability when you are shortlisting camps or deciding which camps make the cut? And are there actually areas that could disqualify a property from making the cut?
So we have a product department that is responsible for contracting, and we contract across the region with between 350 and 400 suppliers, many of which, the majority of which, are properties. So that department is kept busy full-time, analysing and auditing properties according to standards that we set as Cheli&Peacock. And those standards include sustainability, environmental integrity, conservation impact, operational impact and performance, experience, guest experience, and we score those properties internally based on those criteria. Obviously, sustainability, conservation are almost pre-qualifications for someone ultimately going to book a safari in Africa. But they're not the driver of their decision-making, in my opinion. It is that pre-qualification, and they will buy based on location, exclusivity, perceived experience, and brand reputation of a property. But that sustainability pre-qualification is very important. And there are instances where, as I said earlier, people claim a conservation impact story that attaches to their logo or their brand, but that is not delivered in reality. And we will not support those properties. We won't exclude them necessarily. If the market wants to buy them, we will tell the market that we have concerns over conservation integrity or sustainability integrity at those particular products. And more often than not, the market will listen to us. And again, it's a way that we exercise influence over decision-making by the ultimate buyers.
Oh, thank you for that. And the purpose of this session is to be real, and this is a conference that has a ton of investors out there. Murray, are you listening? Lots of investors here, so we want to have a real conversation. And Einars, you are an investor per se. When you develop properties in the Tanzania parks, the concessions have certain criteria for sustainability that is required for you to implement. Do you see those obligations being a constraint on those investments, or is there a friction around the obligations that the concessions would set on you?
General requirements for these licenses are very sensible, so it's not actually hard to fulfill them. And so I would actually see these concessions and licenses to operate inside the parks as a protection to the value. We intentionally decided to build inside parks. We didn't want to participate in open competition that is just outside the parks. There are a number of great places like Karatu, Ikoma, just outside Tarangire National Park in Tanzania. And so these properties are great, but anyone can build there. So when you build inside the park, Part of our business bet is that, I mentioned the 2-3 year licensing window. After that, there should be a cap in order to protect in order not to oversaturate the park. And so what it means for the business is essentially protection of your average daily rates. So that's the translation of it. So generally, that's a value add, and especially when you get longer leaseholds, 15 or 30 year, we see that could potentially provide also value increase for the property, because essentially you don't acquire the land. The land is owned by Tanapa or Ngorongoro conservation area in Tanzania. And so, but we see appreciation and value for these licenses, so you could potentially resell them afterwards when only means to enter the park in a few years is going to be acquire existing business that is operating there.
And I'm going to use a pun that is only appropriate in this session. Let's address the elephant in the room. Rosco, to you. We've seen a huge influx of private equity investments, international brands, looking at sort of growing or expanding in the luxury safari space specifically. Do you see conservation, again, being a roadblock to that effort, or does private equity see conservation as a roadblock?
Firstly, there is a lot of interest in investment through private equity and the big flags coming into these parts of the world, and these are incredible places to invest. I mean, what a wonderful area to invest, to do well and to do good, and so this is a great place to invest. I think traditionally there was much discussion around philanthropy and sort of bolt-ons as a sort of byproduct of an investment. And I think I know now, going through discussions of this nature, that actually core operating models have to have an integrated model and agenda to deliver upon. And as Kieran talks about, there's lots of kind of website marketing one could do and spin up. But actually, the diligence process that these big investors are going through is about long-term security of the model, and that relies on a really integrated agenda, a long-term reputation, sustainable supply chain, all the bits that are fundamental to securing capital investment over the long term. So it's non-negotiable, and it shouldn't be. It's great. Genuinely, it's part of the core operating model, not a bolt-on and not a bluff. So,
amazing stuff. Bonus question to Leena here, because you're a client, I have to. Looking at the East Africa conservation link hospitality pipeline, if you will, and there is an announcement of an international branded camp coming up once every couple of weeks, actually nowadays. Do you see that there is a gap that the capital is still not addressing or not finding its way to?
Nicely thrown in there, Tejas. Yes, I am your client.
Stay away.
Yes, there is a gap. I think the gap is really in understanding what is a safari asset. It's not a hotel room, and that's what people are treating it like. It's a lot more complex. It's an integrated ecosystem. You've got to look at the land, the community, the wildlife. Are we actually holding all of that sacred as we are the performance of the actual hotel? There's definitely a gap in understanding that, and so supporting investors and owners in, say, setting up a conservancy, who's going to fund that for the first couple of years before we can be operating. Patience capital, I don't think people really understand that. It takes time. What are conservation timelines to turning things around? And infrastructure. We are in Africa. A lot of these places are remote, off-grid. You have to consider the solar, the roads, the airstrips, the entire lot, and that's whether you're in a national park like we have been working with KWS as a stakeholder for many years, or whether we're in a conservancy which is community owned. I see everybody chasing luxury safari. I wish we could actually eliminate the word luxury. We might be in a better space than looking to protect the environment. And everyone wants to go into the Mara. Well, Kenya is a big country. East Africa is even bigger, and there's a lot of opportunities beyond the Mara in the mid-scale market and beyond just the high-end luxury asset.
No, thank you for your candor, everybody on the panel. It is very heartening to see that being conservation first can lead to success, and the panelists are a live example of that. Just to put it out there, any questions from the audience? Sure.
Thanks. Leena, but I don't know, maybe everyone. Intrigued, what additional demands are you getting from clients, and what can potentially be done about those things? How can they be managed, mitigated, or anything else?
I think the demand comes from competition. I'm all for competition. Let's invite more operators who are going to bring in wider markets and different markets into Kenya, but we...
I meant...
from the guest.
Yeah, from the guests.
Yeah.
You said that they're...
So that then drives, they've got an outdoor pool. I also need to have an outdoor pool if I want to, outdoor luxury. I want to have a spa which has got, a steam room and I want to do cold plunge in the Mara. It comes from the competition, and it also comes from understanding really what is a safari about. Are you going, what is your why? Why are you coming? Are you coming there to really feel nature and connect with it and understand and see this amazing, incredible wildlife space? Or is it just to go back and have a dinner conversation to say, I almost chose Angama, but then I went to Mahali, Missouri, and it was really good.
If I sort of add to that, I'm really humbled by what our guests are asking us, because there is notoriously a rampant request for, the sort of keep up with the Joneses and the plunge pools and the salt baths. But actually, the travelers that we're seeing are really wanting to just experience an immersion in a part of the world that's fascinating and understand the kind of, some of the history and some of the current issues. And, with a lot of PR around Kenya's migration of late, specifically, there is, this kind of human-wildlife conflict to this human-wildlife coexistence. And genuinely intrigued on how conservation can not only be a force multiplier for genuine improvement in conservation effort, generating green equity value, so it's better to lease your land for wildebeest to move on than to plant tomatoes. And so, a real sort of really deep sort of human connected questions about what is it that they are understanding about the part of the world that we operate in. So going back to, is conservation part of our branding? No, it's part of our being. It's absolutely authentic, guest experience. It has to be. Otherwise, you can't build enough plunge pools.